You skip dinner again, eyes locked on the screen, fingers moving automatically, your brain buzzing with virtual achievements while real conversations fade into background noise. What if the world you escape to is slowly replacing the one you live in, rewiring how your mind processes reward, connection, and time itself? What if the very mechanism designed to entertain you has quietly become the architecture that structures your emotional landscape, your daily rhythms, your sense of self? This isn't about blaming games or gamers. It's about understanding the invisible psychological patterns that transform leisure into something far more consuming and unconscious. Gaming, in its modern form, exists at the intersection of technology, psychology, and human vulnerability, a space where engineering meets our deepest need for stimulation and escape. For millions, the virtual realm isn't just entertainment. It becomes a parallel existence, where emotional regulation, social identity, and temporal awareness operate under completely different rules than reality. The shift from casual play to compulsive engagement rarely announces itself. It creeps in gradually, reshaping dopamine pathways and altering how the brain assigns value to different experiences. Understanding this transformation requires examining not just behavior, but the neurological, emotional, and social mechanisms that gaming activates, often without the player's conscious awareness or control. At its core, prolonged gaming serves a specific psychological function. It offers an alternative reality where control, achievement, and progress feel more accessible than in everyday life. When real-world challenges feel overwhelming, unpredictable, or emotionally demanding, the brain naturally seeks environments where outcomes are clearer, feedback is immediate, and success feels attainable and repeatable. Games are meticulously engineered to deliver precisely this experience. They create controlled environments where effort translates directly into visible progress, unlike the ambiguity of real relationships or careers. This isn't accidental design. Entire teams of behavioral psychologists and software engineers collaborate specifically to maximize engagement, retention, and the psychological pull that keeps players returning compulsively. But here's where it gets interesting. The brain doesn't distinguish between virtual achievement and real accomplishment in terms of dopamine release. Both activate similar reward circuits, creating genuine neurological satisfaction from digital progression. Over time, this repeated activation creates a preference pattern. The brain begins to favor the reliable, consistent dopamine hits from gaming over the uncertain, delayed rewards of real-world effort. This is dopamine habituation in action. The more frequently these circuits fire in response to gaming, the less sensitive they become to everyday pleasures like conversation, nature, or quiet reflection. Consequently, activities that once felt satisfying, reading, walking, socializing, begin to feel dull or insufficient because the brain has recalibrated its baseline expectations for stimulation and reward intensity. The physical dimension compounds this psychological shift. Hours of static posture compress spinal alignment, disrupt digestive rhythms, and create metabolic patterns that favor weight gain and systemic inflammation. Yet the body's deterioration often goes unnoticed because the mind remains absorbed in virtual objectives, creating a dangerous disconnection between physical reality and psychological focus and awareness. Now consider this. Gaming also develops genuine cognitive skills, rapid decision-making under pressure, spatial reasoning, pattern recognition, strategic planning, and adaptive problem-solving all emerge from certain types of gameplay experiences. Players often develop exceptional hand-eye coordination, the ability to process multiple information streams simultaneously, and mental flexibility that transfers to real-world tasks requiring quick, adaptive thinking and response. These benefits, however, depend entirely on context, moderation, game type, and whether gaming exists alongside other activities, rather than replacing them entirely or dominating daily cognitive and emotional life. When gaming becomes the primary source of challenge, achievement, and social interaction, these positive effects become irrelevant because the broader skill set required for human functioning atrophies from neglect. This is the part most people miss. Social skills aren't just learned. They're maintained through consistent practice. Empathy develops through reading facial expressions, tone, body language, all of which are absent in most gaming interactions. Competitive gaming environments often reward aggression, dominance, and hostile communication patterns, creating behavioral tendencies that players unconsciously carry into real relationships, workplaces, and family dynamics over time. This toxicity isn't merely about rude comments online. It reflects a psychological state where interpersonal conflict becomes performance, where human connection is reduced to winning, losing, and hierarchical positioning. The line between virtual persona and authentic self blurs gradually. Players begin identifying with their in-game achievements, status, and relationships more deeply than their real-world identity and actual accomplishments. What began as temporary escape transforms into primary reality. The game world becomes home, while physical existence feels like the interruption, the inconvenience, the thing to minimize and avoid. And this changes everything. Because once this inversion occurs, motivation for real-world engagement collapses. Career ambitions feel abstract. Relationships feel effortful. Self-care feels pointless. All while virtual goals feel urgent, meaningful, and emotionally necessary. The brain has essentially created a new hierarchy of importance. One where pixels and progression outweigh physical health, human connection, and long-term well-being in terms of emotional priority. Recovery from this state isn't about sudden abstinence. It requires gradual recalibration, retraining the brain to find satisfaction in slower, less intense, more authentic forms of engagement and human connection. This means deliberately reintroducing activities that rebuild dopamine sensitivity, physical exercise, face-to-face conversation, creative expression, time in nature, anything that engages the body and mind without digital mediation. It also means confronting the emotional discomfort that gaming was masking, the anxiety, the loneliness, the uncertainty, the feelings that made virtual escape feel necessary in the first place. Facing real challenges requires tolerating ambiguity, accepting imperfection, and building resilience through actual experience rather than simulated scenarios where failure can be reset with a single button press instantly. Moderation isn't just about time limits. It's about maintaining psychological balance, ensuring gaming enhances life rather than replaces it, that it remains a choice rather than a compulsion or escape. The goal isn't to demonize gaming or claim all play is harmful. It's to recognize when something designed for enjoyment has quietly become the structure organizing your entire existence. Your brain is capable of extraordinary things: rapid adaptation, pattern mastery, creative problem solving. But those capacities need diverse inputs, not just the narrow bandwidth of virtual environments and challenges. Life offers complexity that no game can replicate. The unpredictability of genuine relationships, the satisfaction of physical creation, the depth of presence that comes from fully inhabiting your actual experience. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you remove the screen tomorrow, what would fill that space? And would you recognize the person staring back?